types of phishing and methodologies. And guess what? There are a whole bunch. There are ones here that I had never heard of or had called something different, to be honest. And so it's really interesting as we go through these. We're going to spend some time on each and really delve into exactly what's happening. And even before we get there, we're going to talk about the zombie fish. I kind of like this name. Here, it's when they take a control of an email account. This is one of the reasons why you don't leave old email accounts laying around, because they're going to use that email to hit other people if they can get into it. And the assumption is that back then you didn't use passwords that maybe you should have now or would now, right? All right, in this case, once they compromise that email account, could be your current one, their then goal is to reply to an email thread that you already have. And what that does is it means it already establishes both ends of the communication, right? In other words, they're putting a link into your communication as the next step in a trusted conversation that's been going on for a while, maybe back and forth.
They're writing on your credibility because they're words you wrote in the past, and now they're replying to that same chain and throwing phishing in there.
Yeah, and so always verify is really the truth here, right? We've got to verify that they expected us to click a link. And I've been known to call people and ask, did you expect me to open that? Mm-hmm. I've got one recently from a fire chief in the Northeast asking for us to submit a quote on a cybersecurity bid or RFQ, I guess, request for quote. Anyway, long story short is I called them and asked, is this legitimate? And the lady said, no, don't click it. And I said, I did not, would not. But I'm calling you to make sure that this is, you understand.
Yeah.
And it's gone out to the whole world if it's hit me, and others. So we just have to be aware of it. That's really what the job here is, the deceptive emails. Most common comes from a would-be trustworthy sender, right? In that case I just gave you was a fire chief. That's it. That's pretty worthy in my opinion, and trustworthy normally. Or in this case, the top 10 most used brands, Microsoft, Google, LinkedIn.
I like
Apple,
this list
DHL,
because you have some ones that I would not think are in the top 10, like Roblox.
Oh, right. I was like, oh, and Airbnb. I'm like, wait a sec. Wells Fargo. Why? Because it's easy for somebody to pretend to be them. And we wouldn't actually naturally think that Roblox is going to send us a fish, right? It's a game. Yeah. And maybe Wells Fargo is our bank. Well, if it's not, then you're safe, right? No, only if you don't click the link, because they can send you a great deal on a new account, right? Got to make sure we're doing the homework here. We'll include links, documents, images. Remember, don't click on an image file or even open it if you can help it. That's why they block them by default, by the way, is because you're putting it into memory when you even just open it. The seven deadly steps of spear phishing. All right, spear phishing is you've got a target. They know you're a target. How do they know you? Because you're on social media. We put too much information out there and they use it against us, right? Targeted in-depth research and reconnaissance. In other words, they know what your dog's name is. Why? Once again, because you put it on Facebook, right? Or any other methodology, not to pick on Facebook. They gather your email addresses from various places and look into things on the dark web, which is the internet or the cloud. And they find stuff on us because there was a point in time where I had an old account and I didn't close it, right? Or there was somebody else that got compromised and exposed my account information or email address, if nothing else. Ticketmaster is a perfect example, right? One of that's relevant as to last week. What do you think the bad guys are going to do with the fact that they owned almost all of the Ticketmaster client accounts at some point or touched them? They're going to send bad emails out to people saying, hey, we have a brand new Bruce Springsteen concert coming up and it's $100 off if you click this link.
Yep.
From Ticketmaster. Why? Well, because they own their account. They got your information. They know you like music. They even know what kind of music you like and pick your band, right? Put band name here, right? That kind of thing. And endpoint and antivirus are really good solutions. I'm not beating them up, but I am saying they're always behind the case, right? Sometimes as much as 384 days on average behind a 0-day event or a new fish or something they haven't seen before, right? And that means that they can then bypass the filtering. Why? Because we click the link and we know what we're doing. Not really, but the the security teams and everybody else has to assume we do because we need to perform our jobs, right?
Exactly.
Choose phishing scenario perfectly crafted, right? Now, here's where we get into it. We used to say you look for bad grammar, and you still can, by the way. But guess what? AI doesn't use bad grammar. It has these large language models, and it utilizes that to craft really good email. We'll show you. And they can often use a valid email server, right? They can compromise the server too. And so we have to question anything and all things, right? And the trick here is that to get you to do something, click the link, open the device, or look at the document. And when we talk about whaling, it's spear phishing with even more information about who you're going after, right? These are when they go after the mayor or a CEO, target a specific group of individuals. I don't know, like public safety, right? Why? Because China wants to affect us long term or have the capability, and the same with Iran, and the same with Russia and other places. The question isn't why, right? It could be money, it could be for political reasons, right? The point is we have to understand and prepare ourselves, no matter what. Most often targets executives or leaders, goes after our leadership first. Why? Because they have more access than maybe they need, right? And then typically more sophisticated. They use more time, they've crafted this better, or they use better tools to come after us. And they understand how we communicate. They understand how we talk. And it can put it in the flavor of our voices in public safety or in the business world, right? And it really relies on OSINT, right? So really finding the intelligence about all the things that we put out there and utilizing that against us, so that it can research us and then figure it out.
For those who don't know, by the way, OSINT is open source intelligence.
Thank you. When we talk about BEC, business email compromise, this is when they steal somebody's email and then use that. This happens a lot.
Yeah, it's kind of the inverse where they're now impersonating the bigwig and they're targeting someone else in the organization.
Yeah. This one's incredibly effective. We see this working against public safety over and over again. They will pretend to be your director. How do they know your director? Well, oftentimes because it's on the web page, right? You have your tree out there, or that person is publicly known. You know, I don't know, maybe they do webinars.
I still get emails from Tim Morello,
right?
That are
yeah,
he's not running the company anymore. So.
Exactly, but we still see that, right? And when the boss tells you to do something, you're more likely to do it. That's what they're hoping for. And that has effectively worked, even against us. It works. And we look here, BEC losses top 2.9 trillion. That's like the gross national product of a good sized country in 2023. Huge impact, hugely lucrative for the bad guys. So they're going to come back and hit us again. Smishing and vishing, right? Here's when we're getting SM messages or text messages with malicious links or asking us to do something, and it's very effective. According to a report by safety detectives, less than 35% of the population knows about smishing. Really? Let's assume that any link is bad, no matter what, and this is what we keep saying. Well, what about a QR code? Same thing. It's a link. Just think about it in those terms. Would I click that link? Well, if I'm really hungry, I might do that QR code, right? But I still ask for paper menus. Yeah, I'm paranoid. And when we look at this, 2023 State of the Fish report revealed that 76% of organizations experienced a smishing attack. I'm surprised it's that low. I think it's probably 99% because we see it over and over again. And remember, this is going through that big list. So HTTPS sends victims to a fake website. Guess what? It can be a copy of the original. How do you know it's fake? Well, you got to look at it. You got to make sure. And why did you click on it instead of finding your own way there?
Yeah, and it's important to know that just because it has the lock up top, the guarantee you're getting is that you are visiting the site as described above. So if that site is actually misspelled, for example, it could be a valid certificate from Let's Encrypt, for example, and it says HTTPS and there's no warnings from the browser, but you're not actually on the site you think you're on.
Right, even if it has current certificates. You know, so that lock doesn't mean it's good. It just means it's encrypted.
It's encrypted, and it is it is what the URL says it is. So that's something to keep in mind.
And it's very effective. 61% of subjects in a study could not differentiate between the real or the fake. Why? Because it's a copy. It looks exactly like the real one. And when we look here, increased 56% according to OpenText cybersecurity in 2023 in their global threat report. A new phishing website is created once every 20 seconds on average. That's why this is such a big deal. It really is. And why the endpoints and others are struggling to keep up.
One of the techniques, one of my team members on staff, when he has to do a penetration test, will do is he will register a new domain that is very close to the domain that we're targeting for a penetration test, and that has certificates. So if the domain is close enough, or at least maybe it's a shortened version of the domain, so it sounds like it could be it. Right, it's a valid tactic when you're targeting.
Yeah, and it works.
Unfortunately,
it really does. Evil twin. This is when, and this is what we always talk about when you're on Wi-Fi and other things. Don't just assume that it's secure, right? You have to have a good reason for jumping on Starbucks Wi-Fi, and while you're on that Wi-Fi, let's not check our bank accounts. Okay, it's that kind of knowledge. Here we create a network with a good twin who has a stronger signal. For example, if you have been on a Southwest Airlines flight and you join their Wi-Fi, that's great. If you did not delete that Wi-Fi when you got off the plane, and somebody walks into the room with a Wi-Fi hotspot saying they're Southwest with the same type of credentials, guess what? You're going to jump on that Wi-Fi in a heartbeat because it's the strongest thing in the room, and your device likes to go to the strongest Wi-Fi, right? So what they're doing here is they're putting a stronger evil twin in place of or next to the original, and you connect to the strongest one, assuming it's the best. So we have to be careful here.
Again, this one applies more to unprotected Wi-Fi, so ones that don't require a password.
Yeah, where they can pretend to be in between.
Yep.
We can also do it with other protected ones, but it takes a little bit more savvy, and it takes a bit more time and a bit more devices, but that's also why I don't join on the free Wi-Fi in the airport, right? Assuming it is even free. DNS and farming. So we had a little bit of a talk about this one just before we got in here. I used to call this cache poisoning or poisoning it, but it includes the capability of taking over the DNS server itself. Long story short, domain name service is the white page of the internet. It tells us where to go. So if you want to go to Google, it knows the number for Google, and so you can get to that IP address. That's it. What they're doing here is replacing that number with a fraudulent one. That's it. We go to the wrong place and download the malware.
Unfortunately, this is one where you just have to be vigilant. There's not much that the end user can do about this one in most cases.
Right, because they're taking over the device that you're supposed to trust for good source of DNS.
In this particular example, you're going to, bankofamerica.com, and you really are. That's what you put in. Maybe you're even using your own bookmark, and the DNS server closest to you redirects you somewhere else.
It lied. Yep. Because it was owned.
So this is a sophisticated attack. It's difficult, but this is one that's not easy for us to do much about.
Now,
not from us, from our side.
Not from our side, but what about them protecting that DNS server? What about the protections of that and understanding whether it's communicating with bad DNS sources? That would be visible. That's something a monitoring technique or even the endpoint might be able to see if it's installed on the DNS server itself, right?
Well, and again, like even as an end user, the only thing I could say is just from a training perspective, is something weird going on, right? Am I going to this website and the experience is totally different than I'm used to?
Yeah.
It should give you pause, at least.
Yeah.
Think about
at least pause, right? Watering hole targets one particular group, right? So they're making something that you would be interested in and you're more likely to click on to go into there, and exploits a vulnerability on a website, a real website, that gets you to go there, right? So they're really targeting through somebody else a way to get you to click a link or to go to a bad place and download malware, right? The result of all of these is to get malware on your system or a backdoor so they can put malware on your system, right? Man-in-the-middle attacks, and this is called on-path attack. Basically what it means is they're listening or participating or actually being the cache point in your communication, right? So that they can, if need be, step in and take that email. It's similar to some of the original ones we talked about that were effective, that $446,000 one. This is that. They sat in the middle, they affected the communication. So the bad guys could have you send the money to the wrong place, and you never know it because they're also in control of those replies, right? So they gives them that control of the communication itself, and that's really what they're trying to do. And then they can pretend to be both sides or either side, right? Phishing as a service. Well,
everything else is a service, right?
Right. So guess what? You can find a kit, and they'll give you email templates and website templates and detailed instructions on how to do it, and customer support 24/7. I mean, it's all there, and it's designed to send a copy of your stolen data to the creator, right? And oftentimes they aren't honest among themselves. Some of the ransomware groups recently imploded because they weren't paying their own bad guys, right?
Yeah. By the way, website templates means exactly what you think it means. It's basically a tool or a set of tools or templates, like a website tool builder for bad guys, so that you can fake websites with ease, right?
Why make it hard? Because it's a billion-dollar industry or multi-billion-dollar industry. Malas Blocker here first emerged in April of 2023, so a fairly recent one. Only 170 victims. And the interesting here in the reason it was included is 30% have been Russian entities. So it's more of a hacktivist approach, right? They're trying to, in this case, go after the Russians. They'll go after other people too, by the way. Only 30% are focused on Russians. The point is they gain access to server by sending a phishing email, and then they're able to get them also to open documents. And when that happens, they own it, right? And in this case, using Zimbra to the service to actually gain access and control.
Yeah, and that's the one that they say, don't pay us, pay a charity.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, right? Don't pay us. That's okay. Yeah. Fisherman's Hall of Shame, right? So when we talk about these, and notice they're all APTs, to be honest. APT 25, Uncool, Vixen Panda, Kachang, Sushi Toll, Tor, these are China-based groups, right? And their goal here is, well, it's phishing, and a lot of it's spear phishing. So it's a targeted attack. They know enough about you, and they'll spend the time to make it look good, right?
And unfortunately, because it's all about being persistent afterwards, you may not know, right, that you were compromised. You may click that link and see nothing.
Not for a long time or at all.
And they got in, nobody knows it. There's no other signs of compromise for a while. They're just hiding.
Yeah, and a lot of those, especially the Chinese ones, are more patient than most because they're waiting for an event. They're waiting to steal information or hit us when we're down, right? Those kind of things. APT 35, newscaster team, Iranian government. This is a government-sponsored team of APT, Advanced Persistent Threat, designed to come after us. Their main targets are U.S. energy, defense, industrial, engineering, telecom sector, public safety is in there too, right? They are really hitting us, and we see this one. Lazarus Group, that one makes the news every once in a while, North Korea, right? We see this one, APT 37 and 38. Been bad ones for a long time. And Dariel is one of the ones as targeted victims with spear phishing again, right? They spend the time to do the homework, containing malicious Microsoft Word documents, right? PDFs aren't safe either.
Yeah.
So we have to be aware. APT 39 also makes the bad list here. Iranian state-sponsored actors, aka Remix, Kitten, ITG07, Chafer, leverage once again spear phishing emails with malicious attachments. And that's really how they're doing it.